We all have a lot of expenses in our lives, from rent to utilities, consultants, and possibly a lot of discretionary ones. But what most people don't know is that you can actually negotiate a lot of these expenses, and a lot more than you would think. That's what we're going to cover in this video. In life, many times we mistakenly think that we can't negotiate the expenses that we actually have. And in many cases, this is an effect that is actively created, such as by corporations. It's a persuasion principle called rigidity. If you make people believe that you're not open to something, then they're not going to test you. But in many cases, these companies are open to negotiation, and that's exactly what we're going to take a look at. Specifically, we are going to cover 3 key techniques to negotiate this type of expense. The first key to negotiating all of these expenses in your life is to believe that they can be negotiated. I know, it's a mindset thing and not a technique, but it's equally as important. Please realize that most companies want to make it seem like things are not negotiable. They don't have channels open for communication, they tell you that the pricing is set in stone, and other similar techniques. But in many cases, a simple call to customer service saying, "Hey, I'm not really happy with the terms that I currently have, and I'm thinking of leaving," is more than enough to renegotiate in most situations. We'll talk about the techniques in a minute, but right now, this is just a mindset piece. I want you to realize that many things in your life, from your utility bills to your bank commissions to your personal trainer and possibly others, are all negotiable. They make it seem like they're not negotiable, but in fact, they really are. Now here's the key. In many cases, you won't really find any publicly available information stating that things can be negotiated. And that's precisely the point. Even if everybody else is negotiating their price in terms of this service, the company doesn't want most people to do it, so they will keep it secret. So even if dozens or hundreds of people every single day are renegotiating their contracts with a company, that company is not going to say anything publicly because they don't want to open the doors for more people to negotiate the term. I learned about this concept from finance professional Ramit Sethi, who tells you about how to live a rich life. And here's the thing, even if you're doing other things, such as having a side hustle, renegotiating your rates, whatever it is, just renegotiating your actual costs is going to help you save a lot more money in the long term. A similar point in terms of your mindset, which is important to stress as well, is that most pricing on the face of the earth is arbitrary. That is, most of the prices for products, services, or anything in between is arbitrary. And in most cases, the pricing that ends up being the final one is the one that people are willing to tolerate. For example, for every single product that you purchase, from the supermarket items to high-ticket items, the reason for that pricing is the following. The person who is charging the pricing probably tried to charge as much as possible until people started resisting. And when they started resisting, that was the price that ended up as the final one. Now, this is very interesting because you can realize that in a lot of cases, you're not paying a price that represents the actual cost or the value of the service. You are just being charged as much as possible and as much as you're willing to accept. So, if you're willing to accept a lower price, that's what you're going to get. The second key may sound aggressive, but it's just pragmatic, and that is, you want to make it seem like you're willing to inflict even more pain on the other side than they're willing to inflict on you. By this I mean the following. Especially with corporations, they will put you on customer service, on phone calls for hours, switching from team to team, multiple tickets, and here's the key. They want you to give up and not continue with your complaint or with your negotiation. So you have to show them that nothing is going to stop them. And you can literally tell them this. You can literally say, it doesn't matter how long I'm going to be put on hold, I am going to insist on this. It doesn't matter how many times you switch from one department to the other, I'm going to escalate this ticket and I am going to get an answer. In many cases, dealing with customer negotiations as a customer service representative is a game of bluffing. You just want to intimidate them enough so that they don't proceed and they don't insist. But if the person really breaks through and they insist, then they really are on the negotiating table. And then almost everything is up for grabs. So what you want to do here is you want to not be stopped under any circumstance. Keep calling, keep asking for something to be done. And one specific tool that you want to use here is to use open-ended questions. What I mean by this is the following. If you just ask, for example, for a 10% discount and you ask yes or no, it's very likely that you are going to get a no. So instead, you want to ask, what is it that can be done? Or what are you willing to offer? You want to make the other side be the first to come up with an offer. Don't be the one to come up with something because then they can just reject it. And in many cases, this can even be a fun exercise where you reject what they offer and you ask them, what are you willing to do besides that? And then you get them negotiating against themselves. The third key is that you want to show insider knowledge. That is, you want to show that you understand the consequences that losing you as a customer or that the process of negotiation has for the company. That is, you want to show that you understand the costs that the company would have by losing you as a customer, or just the costs of continuing with this negotiation. In terms of customer service, you want to realize that every phone call, every ticket has a cost for the company. So continuing this negotiation without giving you what you want may end up costing the company more than giving you what you want. And you want to show the customer service team that you are aware of this. You want to show that you know that this negotiation has an impact on metrics such as the FCR, or first call resolution, that is, whether a ticket is immediately solved on the first reply or not, and other metrics such as the ratio of tickets that have been solved versus not being solved, or even the average time to resolve a ticket. Naturally, you want to be polite here. You don't want to come in as an outsider and just say, hey, you're here to serve me, give me this. Not at all. You want to do the opposite. You want to show understanding of how a customer service representative has to take into account both the best interests of the company and of the customer. And you want to genuinely ask for their help and ask what can be done. Then, the cost of customer acquisition is another important metric. That is, what is the cost for a company to acquire another customer such as you? This is important because in many cases, I would argue in most cases, what you're asking in terms of the negotiation will never be higher than the cost of replacing you with another customer. And this depends on the industry, right? For example, if we're talking about banks, that's the cost of acquiring a new customer for the bank. Or if you're talking about a contractor, such as a personal trainer or even a coach like me, it's about the cost that they have in acquiring another customer such as you. You can even leverage what you've already spent with that institution and argue that a new customer is not going to spend that much. Naturally, this depends on how long you've been a customer of them and how much you've spent at the end of the day. For example, if you've been the loyal customer of a bank for the last 10 years or 20 years, all of that money that they've made off of you in terms of fees and commission, and possibly other sources of income such as interest charged on loans that you have incurred, are all sources of revenue that they've made off of you. So it's very important to illustrate to the organization, you are going to spend money by not giving me what I want, and you'll also spend more money if you have to lose me and replace me as a customer. Naturally, we could talk about more advanced topics, but these three will be very useful for most of the population. First of all, you have to have the right mindset. You have to consider that everything can be negotiated. Otherwise, you're not even going to try. Then, you have to be willing to inflict more pain on them than they are on you. You have to show that no matter how many times you're transferred, no matter how long you wait, you are going to get to the end of this. And finally, show how much this is costing the company, or how much it will cost the company, both in terms of customer service, just wasting manpower by resolving the situation, but also how much they would lose if they had to acquire a new customer to replace you. If you've enjoyed the content, please consider liking and subscribing, and remember that we have more negotiation and communication videos for other purposes. Thank you so much for watching.